fan.
My cabbages!
Low, low, man.
Ah, my cabbages!
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
What is up, everybody? It is, of course, Andrew Esquire, Legal Mindset, and this is where we teach you to be your own judge, documenting the downfall of Ramzi Khalid Ismail from beginning to end. And today we have a very special episode for you today, as we are joined by a guest, a member of the SCT. So I want to bring Gabe in here real quick. So for those that don't know, this is Gabe. Gabe, welcome to the show finally. Right?
Hey, what's up, everybody? What's up, Andrew?
So Gabe, we have to lay your background out here a little bit. So because you've been on other shows to talk about Johnny Somali, but you haven't been on my show yet. But you and I have been talking since the beginning of this, right?
Since the very beginning, yeah.
No, was it October, November 2024?
Yeah, it was October. It was right before the first indictment. So perfect timing there.
Yeah, so we were in connection, and so Gabe has been here from the beginning, kind of helping me out, amongst other folks, and there's a lot of folks that helped out, but Gabe has been very central to this. And for my audience, Gabe, do you want to give some of your background and experience? Because, I was in Korea, for 3 years. Right now, I know some, Korean attorneys. My ex-girlfriend happened to be a Korean attorney, right? And I knew a little bit, but you happen to know a lot. So maybe you can explain why you know so much about the Korean legal system.
Yeah. Well, I've been here since 2011, so I've been here quite a while. Not even off and on. I've been here in living in Seoul, and with a web programming background, worked in a lot of startups with a lot of entertainment crossover. I started my own entertainment company recently. Those that know the upcoming documentary IRL, I made that. It's finished, by the way. That documentary has been finished for a while. We're just waiting for it to get picked up. We're working on that. And for over 10 years, I've been involved in multiple criminal cases here in Korea, and actively involved, including writing complete briefs in English, and even working on some of the translations into Korean, some of which have actually been successful. So I thought that was all over, and then Johnny Somali came along. So
right.
By the time he came along, I had been in over 40, 50 hearings, something like that.
40? Okay, let's just say 40 or 50 hearings.
I actually have some of them very long, some of them 4 hours, some of them 5 minutes, like we've seen. But everything like testimony, opening statements, closing statements, sentencing. I've seen hundreds of sentencings, but those were in one hearing. They happened in one hearing, but cumulatively, I've seen hours and hours of sentencing. So I've seen a lot.
Okay, and I think I have the right mic now. I think I was using my laptop mic before. So.
Oh, okay.
Me scusi chat. I was chat was just making fun of me there. I think my audio should be good now. By the way, real quick, let me just acknowledge these. Unbound Valkyrie, thank you for the 10 Legal Mindset membership. Thank you so much. Peroro as a new member, thank you very much. Beatrice Sims 2436 for $4.99 says, I almost feel bad for streamers. The only way to make money is OF. That's one way. Or Johnny hasn't started an OF yet. Or criminal activity. They escalate to stay relevant. Black Mirror kind of. It really is. If you actually watch early Black Mirror, there's actually a lot of the stuff from like season 1 that's already come true, essentially, effectively. Streaming is, and we see this with a lot of the case we cover, Somali, Vitali, and I'm covering it, in other things with the Chud case, etc. Where they will have to escalate their behavior to farm more rage, to farm more clips, to to stay relevant in their world of content. It's pretty bad. And at this point, a lot of the behavior that is already been, the things have already been done. So the behavior that's left is a lot of it criminal. So essentially, the only behavior that hasn't been done is criminal activity, and people are trying to see what they can get away with. Just the other day, we had freaking Nina Lynn trying to pretend, for like the 6th time that she didn't know how to scan stuff. That was another one that was coming out there. Yeah, she's stealing stuff from Target and basic stores in the US, but she's trying to say, oh, I forgot to scan it, and because it's a small item, it's not typically prosecuted, so she gets away with it. But once again, influencers are finding themselves in these positions because they're pushing the line. And Johnny Somali absolutely knew he was pushing the line. Like, let's make no mistake. Johnny Somali, like, throughout this whole thing, knew what he was doing. I mean, right, Gabe?
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
Yeah. So
exactly.
anyways, to circle back, you've gone to the Supreme Court of Korea.
Yes. And
So,
we will be talking about the Supreme Court in this case eventually, and as well. But let's put it this way: the chances are higher of me winning an Oscar with a movie that I released than winning a Supreme Court case, a criminal case in Korea.
It's very difficult, right?
With civil, you have a bit better of a chance. There's you will meet people who have won a civil case in the Supreme Court, but winning a civil case in the a criminal case in the Supreme Court is very difficult, because that is precedent establishing. That means that whatever decision they make is going to be referred to in future cases that may be similar, and this will have settled lots of questions that people might have in the future. In this case, this was a decision that has to do with workers' rights in Korea and the balance of power between them and a corrupt CEO.
Cool. Peroro real quick said, happy anniversary, Andrew. Thank you very much for that. And also Danny Skier has a question, remember, for 16 months. Yo, Gabe, why not visit the prison Johnny Somali is at to see? Well, this is a question. Why don't we visit him? Because, okay, they have to actually accept you visiting them, number one. And number two, it's not like proper visitation. I think we talked about this for the detention center, but really the letter writing is the most common form of communication. They're not going in person and showing up and having those visitations. And I believe there's only a small window. And this came up, I believe, with Jungmann, with some of the other SCT folks who went to go see Jungmann. There's like 1 week or 1 day every couple weeks where you can go in and see them. It's not like you can just pop in there any day and just request to see Johnny Somali and he can come out to see you.
Yeah, I mean, my question be, why would we want to visit him?
Right.
There's enough that we're hearing about it. I'm not interested in anything that he has to say in particular.
He wouldn't tell us the truth. Like, there wouldn't be, like, especially if he knows who Gabe is, he knows who I am. Like, he's not going to give me any useful information.
Yeah, I think there's very little to nothing, probably more towards the nothing side to gain from doing that. But we're less than 2 months out from him being behind bars, and look at this fire hose of information we've gotten from him. Yeah.
Icon Bearer for 10 pounds says, I've been having a rough time lately, but I always look forward to your videos and live streams. So thank you. Moodang for the win. Hey, what's up? Thank you. We got the cabbage there, but hold on. Moodang is never far away. Moodang's over here. Okay. So Moodang is still here. Okay. Moodang has not abandoned you. What I'm going to try to do is get a bookshelf so I can kind of stack it both and put some books there. Maybe I'll get a physical copy of the Korean sentencing guidelines and kind of put that back there. Okay. So let's start with this. We have a trial date now. So we have a trial date that is June 11th, correct?
June 11th is when the second trial of Johnny Somali begins, the appeal trial, which is what they call a twin appeal, a joint appeal between both parties have appealed. This is a rare situation. I've seen this situation. I've seen it, but both of these are rare. So June, a defendant appealing a sentence under 6 months is rare.
So we had talked about this, and originally we thought it was going to take longer, right? When we were kind of caucusing about this and putting our heads together, we thought it was being longer. So what are your thoughts on it being sooner than we expected?
I thought it was going to start in September. I was willing to make that prediction. I looked back in a number of cases, 5 or 6, not a huge number, but 5 or 6, I think is a good sample
size.
Sample size, yeah, and I could not find one instance of an appeal trial beginning earlier than 5 months after the sentencing. But as we know, there are things that make this entire case different. Among them, his sentence is only 6 months, which, I mean, you and I spoke to a former prisoner who had a sentence of 3 years, and he regretted appealing because nothing came out of his appeal, and all it did was waste time in detention, which he stated was worse than prison with labor, right? So that's rare for somebody to appeal a sentence less than 6 months, because presumably it would take more than 6 months for the trial. Having the prosecutor appeal as well is also rare. I've seen it happen, but it happens because it's allowed, and this is one of those cases where it's obvious that it should. My guess, and this is just a guess, right? My guess would be that they looked at this and said, hey, this is a 6 month sentence. If we don't move this along a little bit, this could go longer than that 6 months. And then they have to figure out what to do with him during that time.
Well, they would detain him, right? That's the default, right? So
by default, they would detain him, but then there's the chance that the prosecutor does not win, and then they have to compensate him for that time. So that's kind of a dilemma, right? Do you detain him and risk having to compensate him for that time, or do you let him back out again and hope he doesn't? Even with the flight risk that they already determined that there was.
True.
However, I suspect it's still going to take longer than they think it's going to take.
I was going to say, because I mean, at a minimum, we're looking at. So, by the way, let's read through this here real quick to show you guys. So, April 15th was the ruling and sentencing. Then we had victim Lee requesting a copy of the rule and stenographic record. The 417 convict, that's RKI's private lawyer, requests a copy of the ruling. He creates some drawings. I'll just ignore the drawings part. The green, we'll ignore that. Victim Kim submits a request for severe punishment. That's Bong petition number 3 total. There's a convict, that's RKI, who submits notice of appeal on 420. 421, the prosecutor submits grounds for appeal and notice for appeal. On 511, there's another request from victim Cho for severe punishment. So that's petition number 4 for severe punishment. And I think I'd actually miscounted this in my previous video. There's more of these petitions for severe punishment than I thought. So there's 4 total that came on the 11th of May. Then you got a public defender on the 12th. The 15th, he submitted his grounds for appeal. 18th, the first appeal hearing was set for June 11th, and then we'll have June 11th. We'll have the first appeal hearing. So how long do you think till the next hearing? So we've got the first hearing on the 11th. When do you think the next hearing is going to be? I mean, if this is anything like the trial, it's at least 1 month out, right?
Yes. I mean, given the fact that they've expedited this by what is it, 3 months by my estimate, right? The first hearing is 2 months afterwards. Having it any shorter than 1 month between hearings is still very difficult for the system to handle, and what that means is they really put some sort of priority on the case. So I think that's harder to predict. My default would be to usually an appeal like this would be 3 hearings, maximum 4. And getting witnesses called back is very difficult. So we have to.
What's the difference with the procedure? So you said 3, maximum 4 for this. So this appeal versus the first trial, what's the difference? What are some things they are and aren't doing, right? So they are doing, for example, opening statements, right?
Yes. There will be the opening statements, calling any witnesses that they need to call. And that usually will result in that 3 month break, but they might try to shorten that a little bit. But usually they put that 3 month to make sure that they get that witness in the room. So that if there's a question of whether there'll be witnesses, the simplest I've ever seen was opening arguments, and then there was nothing else to say, and then the next hearing was the verdict. I've seen that happen, and I've seen one of the longest trials I've ever seen, which went on. This happened to go on during COVID, which didn't help. We happened to have a witness that was being very difficult and refusing to show up, which also made it go on. It went on for a year and a half. So appeals have a very wide range of how long they can take. Usually they're pretty much always they're shorter than the first trial, except for one exception, which I saw, which was, I think COVID was responsible. But usually it's 4 max. That's pretty. It's very rare that it takes more than 4. I think that this one could.
Okay. And Gabe, by the way, some people are commenting. I don't know if you changed your audio. You might want to poke the audio down, level down a tad.
Okay.
Yeah, just a tad. But yeah, much better. Okay, let me get some of these. But yeah, no, I think that would be that would make sense. It'll be interesting to see if Bong Bong comes back on stand. So of all the witnesses, she's the one that I think things ride the most or were sorted out the most, because her sort of lack of severe harm, saying that she wasn't crying or bawling her eyes out, and she wasn't impacted by this deeply, that was cited as one of the factors to mitigate his sentencing. So do you think they'll bring Bong Bong back and question her again?
I think that Bong Bong's lawyer has made it very clear that they're going to make a fuss out of this, and that matters. When a victim makes a fuss like this, it very much matters. And it's unusual to call a witness who testified in the first trial back. But I'm going to venture to say it's highly possible that they will do that, because it is the judge's interpretation or misinterpretation of her testimony that is the problem. That is the main problem here.
One of the main problems, right? Yeah. Also, I was mitigated for him being a foreigner, essentially, like saying, okay, because you were under a travel ban, we mitigated it. What the hell? There's a lot of weird decisions in there. Let me get some of these. Proxy for 20 says, I have to wonder how RKI would react if he found his appeal only served to double his current time. Yeah, that's hilarious. I mean, once again, I don't think nobody is explaining the process to him right now. Those prison letters make it crystal clear that he doesn't know what's going on. And Gabe, can you talk about this? Can you talk about how, because I've tried to explain this, how Korean lawyers only give you like the bare minimum? Can you kind of go into a little bit of thought on that?
That's true. Even your lawyers will give you the bare minimum information. For example, you and I talked about this on the very first court date. The first question they were going to ask him is, what is his address? And we knew exactly what was going to happen, right? We knew exactly. He was not going to know how to say his own address, and that became a comedy of errors that took way longer than it should have. But yes, and I will say this. We've talked about his lawyer, but this is true even of the best lawyers. And they often won't warn the client that, yes, at sentencing day, if you are convicted, they will take you out on the spot. So people, even with great lawyers, will go stand there having no idea that they're going to be sentenced to prison and taken away on the spot. I've seen so many people sentenced who had no idea that they're about to go to prison. It just did not compute. So Ramsey's actually not the first one in that sense. So think about this. If your lawyer is such low information, right? If a paid lawyer is such low information, what will a public defender, will they be able to, what will they have time to even think to tell you? Right. And let alone prison guards, let alone anybody else. The people who will give him the best information are the fellow prisoners, but they don't know the details of the situation.
Right. They don't, of his situation specifically, right?
Yeah, exactly. They can't watch Legal Mindset.
Well, no, right? and they're also going to be applying like the facts that apply to them specifically to Ramsey, and just that doesn't always compute, right?
And they don't know that the prosecutor has appealed.
Yes,
and I'm fairly sure that the public defender has not informed him what it means that the prosecutor has appealed, that he's facing more time. He thinks he's out in November no matter what. I'm pretty sure. And you can tell from his letters. Another thing you can tell from his letters is he's not aware of why he's in Nambu Detention Center.
Yes.
He just thinks, oh, this labor stuff is misinformation. They haven't been putting me to work. I've been chilling all day. He does not understand why.
That's a detention center. That's not the prison. Yeah, exactly. He doesn't understand shit. Almighty Pudding King for 10 says, don't forget to eat your pudding. Thank you. Crazy Sharp says, stop interrupting him with chats like this one. Thank you. Thank you, buddy. Gary Griffin 461 for 10 says, hello, Gabe and Andrew. Gabe, your help and insights have certainly helped sort Korean legalities in my apology for a brain. So I'm glad to say thank you, more or less directly.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Danny Skier said, also for 40 Thai Bot, also Legal Mind said, I did ask you about Gino before any updates. He's in Bangkok. I caught him trying to stream here, although he's not streaming on his own channel. He's like popping into other people's channels. I think he popped onto like Sam Pandey's channel, but Sam Panday got punched in a bathroom here like a week or so ago for mouthing off or doing something. I mean, I don't know. He's doing a lot of stuff he shouldn't be doing, like recording in places he shouldn't record and etc. But Gino is not, I mean, Gino, as far as we're concerned here, Gino is not going to go back to Korea. And unless he went back to Korea, there really wouldn't be any consequences for him. He's not getting extradited. Gino's not getting extradited or anything over anything that happened in Korea. I think Gino's more one just to watch in general because he's likely to do some stupid stuff in the future, right? Like most of these nuisance streamers, right? So if you just watch any of them, they're eventually going to do something stupid or potentially illegal in the future, like on a long enough timeline. Magma Fox says, hoy, 26 months. Am I late? What I missed? Not too much. We're just talking about what's coming next with the appeal. Ryobi said back then criminals hid their crimes. Well, criminals today will show everything and then argue with rights like they're a villain from a comic book. Well, it's crazy to me that they'll argue when it's there in 4K. I mean, there's really not much they can argue about. It's like, look, you did this thing. The deep fake, me and Gabe talked about this from the beginning. The deep fake, it's just the most on your face, you did it crime. It's a deep fake. You published it to the internet. It's kind of the end of the analysis there. It's sexual under the Korean definition of sexuality, right? Legal definition, right? So we're talking about legal definitions, right? It is considered sexual. So that's it. It doesn't matter what Bong Bong did. It doesn't matter how you felt about it. It doesn't matter that it's not illegal, that maybe it wouldn't be illegal in the US, probably not, that's really irrelevant. Beatrice says Johnny Somali would lie why he's there in the first place. Yeah, no, Johnny Somali will lie habitually. Pilot Girl said, any news on the Lotte World Eastern District case, the CHS case? Gabe, you want to comment on that? I'll let you.
I think that there are some there's some more evidence that they need to see. I think especially given that this hearing is being moved up. The priority is to get certain information to this prosecutor, and then there's time for the CSH charges.
We still have time.
Here's what I understand. His argument about that is this is another way that he tells on himself. He talks about this all the time. He says, my alibi. So I have several alibis for the TTS thing. One is it's a Chinese virus. It's Weiwei or whatever. What is
Chinese virus?
Xiaomi. I don't know. Whatever those phones are. There's the Chinese virus excuse. There's it's my ringtone. People's calling me on the phone. And he straight up admits, he's like, it's an alibi. I know they're saying some crazy right? They're talking some crazy smack. They're saying crazy. I have no idea. I don't understand. That's my third alibi. I don't speak Korean. I have no idea what they're saying. That alibi, he literally says, this is my alibi, and that alibi works. And he talks about how he used that on the judge in Japan, who did not buy it, by the way. But the Eastern District initially bought it, and that's why they dropped it in the first place. The Western District said, hey, there's something to it, sent it back to the Eastern District, and now it's sitting there. They're waiting for some additional evidence, so we're going to have to make sure they get that. Got it.
So we're just going to see what happens there. Right. Billy Oki said, womp womp, Little Ramsey, if you remember, for 33 months. Bad News Badger for 200 Danish krona says, a little something for the jar, and if there's any leftover chips for the Somali team /fun, thank you. Irish Raven for 50, thank you very much. Okay, so here's another question that I would have. In the appeal discussion, do you have to is it sort of the same as the US where we're talking about like legal errors, or like it's either they've got to argue like law or procedure?
Yes,
and they really can't debate.
Is it a question of fact, or is it a question of law? Fact meaning new evidence, but a question of law. I think that's the bigger one here. There's not a whole lot of new facts to introduce. New evidence can be a compelling reason for an appeal.
The only thing they say is like a new petition for severe punishment, right? That's not really a new fact. It's a new submission, right? I guess it is a fact, but
it's not. It's they most likely don't have new facts in there, but these statements do make a difference. Just like a letter from a victim saying, "Hey, I forgive this guy. I want you to give him a lower punishment." That would make a difference too. They look at those.
Yeah, he's not getting many of those. He's not getting many of those.
Mm-hmm.
He got the one letter from his mom. His mom wrote in, right?
Yep.
One from his mom, one from mama, right? But that one from mama is balanced out by 4 letters for petition for severe punishments, right? Which, like we talked about with the charges, it's rare to have one charge like merged in. We had 7 for a total of 8, right? You know, it's rare to get probably one petition for severe punishment, and he's got 4.
Right.
So,
exactly. And it's rare to have no letters of reflection until after the trial is over.
Do you think he'll submit another one?
I don't think so. I am not shy about making predictions. Sometimes I'm wrong when I make my predictions. I like my track record, so I'm often not shy. I don't think he'll send another apology letter. Because if he's appealing, it's sort of digging your heels in and claiming some sort of innocence for something. And I'm sure he's still focused on those deep fakes.
Sure. And I mean, that's probably his key.
Yeah. I think the words of Hank, the words of his private lawyer, which both of them spoke out against the law, right? Which is not the greatest advice.
But now both of those people are out of his life. Now both those people are gone. I mean, Hank's gone and the lawyer's gone. So,
and he has a public defender who's not going to give him a lot of great information. He's going to have a bunch of Korean people around him who might know the law through their own experience on the wrong side of the law that are going to give him information that's not relevant to his situation. I would guess that he's going to keep going with the stuff that he liked to hear from.
And he's probably going to have some jailhouse lawyering, right? Because there's always those criminals in here that are in jail and the detention center who think they're the lawyer and they're gonna tell you what's up, and some of them,
exactly.
maybe they do know some certain things, but it doesn't mean they know everything. But you're right. This is actually a good question from the audience here. For LTC. 1623 for 5 Australian said, just as a question, if he doesn't know about the appeal, is he supposed to be told that or no? I think he knows about his appeal because he would have had to approve that, right?
They did send specifically. He does receive they'll be Ismail, you have, or they would say his prisoner number. They will deliver that to him in English, but I think he doesn't know what it means. Even when it's printed in English, because it doesn't say, when it says the prosecutor has appeals, it has appealed. It doesn't say what that means. It doesn't say the reasons for it. It doesn't even tell him that he might even get more prison time because of it.
So he doesn't know about the prosecutor. It's very possible that he doesn't know about the prosecutor's appeal at all. But is it? I think he knows about his own appeal, is what I'm saying.
Oh, of course.
He knows. He probably knows. Obviously knows he appealed. He's aware he appealed. He's probably not sure what an appeal entails. That's what probably hasn't been spelled out for him.
I mean, I think I think he knows what an appeal means in general.
In general, no, he knows what the word means, but not in Korea, and what goes along with that,
and what his chances are, and the fact that in the United States, appeals, most of them are rejected, right? Most of them are thrown out by the judge, right? The judge can throw out an appeal, right? If they say, "Hey, there's the grounds for this appeal do not apply," or something like that, right? And so, a lot of times foreigners, when they appeal, they will take it as validation that the appeal goes forward without realizing that that's automatic in Korea. You can have the stupidest reason on earth for appealing, and there will be a new trial. They're going to have a whole, think about all the money that goes into these trials. They don't care. they're like, oh, the defendant appealed, so we're going to have this new trial. And the whole, I mean, we all know that he's looking at everything through American eyes, right?
Mhm.
And not realizing that the U.S. justice system does not apply here. And I don't even think he understands what it means that a prosecutor can appeal, and that it means potentially more time for him. Let me see here. Let me take a look. Let me find out which.
A lot of people in the chat are like, I want to go visit him, or I'm debating it. I'm like, guys, like,
why?
Yeah, it's not gonna. Number one, it's not gonna do anything, and number two, he probably is not gonna take it, even if you go. You know, during the very small window that exists.
Everybody who is engaged with him, except there's one exception, and that's 15 minutes of shame. I think he did a good job. But I mean, I'm not saying that, I'm not advocating getting into a discussion with him, but everybody who has had those interactions with him, from the moral side of the aisle has regretted it, because he's always going to find a way to use that against people.
Yeah. Or try to sabotage your stream, or to promote himself, right? Like, it's not gonna, no matter what you do, it's not gonna give you something like good on Somali to use against him, etc. Like, it typically is, his own worst enemy is himself when he's streaming alone. Typically when he's dragged into these other situations, he finds a way to worm out of it, right? I think about, like, for example, his interview with Ice Poseidon, right? That was a joke, right? I mean, he pretty much weaseled out of any tough questions or any deep responsibility there.
I'd also point out that in his recent 5-page letter, he ended it by saying, this is sort of like, I mean, pathetic, obviously. I mean, he just is pathetic, but this is one of the more pathetic moments. At the end, he is like, hey, please spread, here's my address. And he gives his address at Nambu Detention Center, sorry. And he says, please encourage my fans and my critics to write to me. I would love to hear from them. That means he wants hate mail. He wants that attention. He wants that he sees that as validation as well. But I read when he said, like, it was very, like, the polite language that he uses when he says, please ask my critics to mail me. Like, you're going to send him a letter. Like, I'm going to send him a letter or visit him.
Yeah.
Anything like that.
Yeah.
Like, all of that just about, he's already bragging that he says he's a celebrity in the prison, that people
giving him attention is what he wants. Like, his psychology, he wants attention, right? Ignoring him is actually more effective in a lot of circumstances. Darth Torland for 10 says Ramsey Kalidas deserves harsh justice, like he gave his victims. No hold barred. If he can't take it, he shouldn't dish it out, money and clout or not. It's very true. And shout out to Darth Torland, good content on his channel. Shoulder Chip says, hello, Joni, I'm your new friend, Odiga. A little bit of information there. Okay, do you think there's anything that because I want to just wrap up our kind of appeal discussion. There's going to be 3 judges. So the biggest factor I think is probably going to be looking at what the trial court judge ruled on and the things that he ruled on, and whether or not those are appropriate under the Korean sentencing guidelines and system and precedent. Because I think that's the biggest area where this judge stepped outside of the norm, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm glad I'm glad in every situation that it's 3 judges. They're either gonna absolutely validate dismissing the appeal. Dismissing the appeal means the defendant loses the appeal, right? A lot of times the defendants hear dismissed and they think case dismissed. No, it means appeal.
Here's a question real quick. So, is it usually when they come to a ruling, are they usually unanimous, or do they usually split?
They have to be unanimous, but that can mean they can be unanimous in a split decision, which is an extremely rare case where they can say, there are 2 who say, dude, let's let this guy off, but there's one who's extremely stubborn and is like, no, like I still think he's guilty all the way. Then they could come to a compromise where they'll either find some like mitigating circumstances and they'll reduce it, even though the other 2 don't want to. That's a compromise between the 3. Then you have a unanimous decision. But for the most part, it's
See, that's different than the U.S. That is different than the U.S. So it's like they're coming to a compromise and kind of moderating it, rather it being like, hey, we're 2 and you're 1. We're just going to outvote you and go with our extreme version, right? So they're coming to some sort of middle ground.
Right. So, for example, in a Supreme Court case in the United States, they can say 5-4, this decision barely passed. But the Supreme Court case that I was involved with, I'll never know what that vote was, because it's I think it was a subgroup of 7. I think it was 7. It was like all 7 said, quash this case, right?
Got it.
And that was a negotiation that took place between them. But that means they all. But usually their decisions are like one side or the other. The compromise thing is extremely rare. So usually they will pretty much be in agreement, like accept the prosecutor's argument or accept the defendant's argument. And that's why you see guilty on all charges, right? Which was another reason why Johnny Somali's not guilty. Like, guilty pleas mixed with not guilty made no sense, because they will never say, we find you guilty on this charge, not guilty on that charge. That it has happened, but generally it's all or nothing.
Someone mentioned this in chat, kind of funny. Imagine if Hank flipped as a witness.
I think that
would be very funny.
I think it would be epic, and I think it's not outside of the realm of possibility. And I think Hank is he has a very like a fragile ego, but sometimes the enemy of my enemy is my friend. X-Men United. You have a common enemy, and you got to like temporarily form an alliance.
Right. Just this.
Yeah. So Hank, think about it, man. You got a very big choice right now.
Here's your chance, Hank. Your mini redemption arc. It could happen. Okay, so I guess we'll wind this down here. But what I wanted to get to, because we have a little teaser here, is there's a lot more coming in the Somali case, and we have found some things in the Somali case that are very interesting. So, Gabe, do you want to give a little bit of a hint as to some of the stuff we have coming down the pipeline here? Because we've been doing a little bit of extra research here.
Yeah, we found some things. We found, how should I put it, except multiple criminal cases for Ramzi Khalid Ismail in the United States.
So we found an extensive criminal record in the United States that has not been talked about, really. And this is nuts. All it took was, and I'd gone into some of the more overt stuff, the stuff that'd been streamed, but a lot of this stuff, there may not be video for it, right? You may, it's like FOIA request. You submit a FOIA request and you can get this stuff. There's a lot of stuff on RKI that did not come out, and some of it sounds pretty crazy. So that's going to be a future one as well. And then I guess this was brought up on the chart, but there may even be some issues with some of the stuff he's put out in his prison letters and sold or tried to sell, right? Because there's certain things you can and can't do in Korea, and Johnny Somali constantly wants to mess around with Korean laws. So we may be talking about that in the future as well. So kind of bifurcated there. Other thing too, Gabe, what's your timeline on IRL looking like? Because we had the trailer out.
Yeah. It's been finished for quite a while. The last edit that was made was right after April 15th, when I changed the coda. And so April 15th, I didn't change the coda because I wanted to wait to see what the appeal process would be. Appeal process, all I did was change the text. That's it. And if there's, I will change that coda if there's after that, there's a finality with the appeal. I'll probably change the coda again. It's good to go. I've been trying to get it picked up by distributors, And if by the end of this, end of the summer, like we don't have it in a film festival, I have 2 options for self-distributing. 2026, you will see it.
Okay. Well, I will be there when it premieres, especially in Korea. So
I have a feeling it will premiere in Korea.
Yes.
And I have a feeling it will also be in the United States. And I have a feeling that by the end of the year, anybody will be able to see it on streaming.
Perfect. My pet snake Reggie 751 for 20 Oz said, "Will Johnny be given a harsher sentence just for wasting the court time with appeal?"
That's a good.
How would you answer that? How would you?
I have the answer to that. They don't give a shit. Where's the swear jar?
Swear jar. Okay, swear jar's here. Okay, hold on.
They do not care how long it takes, how much money it costs. They are not keepers of the coffers. I'm talking judges. I'm talking prosecutors. Judges mainly, but prosecutors, police, they don't care how long it takes. They do get annoyed with complicated cases that they have to think about too much, which is kind of, it's like, well, what is your job anyway, right? But they don't care about a waste of time. Like Johnny wasted 9 months with his not guilty pleas playing games with the courts. He wasted 9 months. They do not care. They really don't. There's lots of things that they care about here, but they do their job. They show up every day. They go by the laws. They interpret it, and I mean, definitely there are judges who will give a harsher or lesser sentence on something that's not strictly by the book, like considerations like that. But this is never one of them. They just don't look at it that way. I'm telling you this from the perspective of multiple people that I talked to about it, including a former judge.
So one thing that somebody asked on my locals live chat, they were asking, can they increase his fines? I think his fines were maxed out. I think the fines were maxed out. It's just the jail time that's not maxed out. But
he has no fines.
He had 0.
He has 0 fines.
That's right. He did. That's right.
Yeah, he was not. He was sentenced.
Well,
to
no.
But,
sorry. Here's what I'm thinking. For the Minor Offenses Act, it's the 30 days or a fine, right? So you pick a module. So because he's getting the 30 days, I think you don't do the fines. It's like an either or situation. But I do think with some of the other charges, he could, but he didn't get them, right? So
yeah, they can. I think at this point, any increase, the maximum they could increase the detention to is 45 days. But yeah, no. What did they ask for? What did the prosecutor ask for?
3 years total.
3 years total, and then the fine. So 20 days. So 45 days is the maximum that they could possibly, because 30 days is the maximum for minor crimes. 30 days detention, and then in a severe case that's part of sort of a crime spree, they can do it 1.5 times. So they could do 45 days. So the anything less than the detention, that would be a reduction to a fine. I've seen that happen, by the way. I've seen prison term reduced to a fine. That can happen. That's also rare. But they can increase that detention time to 45 days. But I think what we all should be concerned with is that overall prison sentence, because 20 days compared to that 3 years, 45 days, or whatever.
Yeah, well, compared to the 20, compared to the 6 months, right? So
yeah, it's that 6 months that we want to see turned into at least 1.6 months.
Exactly, that's exactly what we want. The Pondering Professor, Dr. Ulrich, for 2,000 here. Echan says, "Look at you two nerds. Give me a cabbage. Hey, look at. I hope you got your cabbage. They're now the sale got locked, but I do appreciate you, Ulrich. Ulrich also, Dr. Ulrich, big help here with a lot of stuff during the case. Once again, it's a team effort. It was all of us working together on this. I do love, and you've addressed some of these and dealt with like my detractors that were somehow under the impression that I was just solely coming up with this information alone, like in a vacuum somehow, not talking to anybody or having no frame of reference. It was very, very interesting. But as you guys can see, we all work together, help stay in contact. So if I ever say anything that's wrong, I'm usually very quickly corrected, especially on my Somali streams. I have, I'll have somebody call up or whatever, or it'll be Gabe or it'll be somebody else that'll be like, hey, that's not exactly right, or hey, this other thing could happen too, or there could be this contingency. So I really have tried to keep my reporting on Somali as accurate as possible. So if there's a mistake, it's usually based on, okay, we made a guess based on an estimate and it didn't come out right. Like, for example, with how fast we thought the appeal was going to start. On average, Gabe looked at 6 different cases. On average, it took 5 months for the case to start. This one started in 2 months. It's a statistical abnormality. But when we guess, we're guessing based on reasonableness, right? Based on, okay, this is what we reasonably see. So, it can happen. Things can happen. Not perfect. But we'll try to give you guys the best coverage, and we will be well. I have to. Well, there will be somebody attending the trials. Okay, the trials will be attended, so we will have records from all of the trials upcoming with the appeals. So you guys can definitely look forward to that. Gabe, any last words you'd like to say to everybody?
Yeah, you will know what happens on June 11th, and you will get the most accurate reporting right here. And then Newsweek and New York Times will mess it up.
Yep, absolutely will. Okay, guys. Well, stay based, guys, and I'm going to be back with more on this as well. And also, I will, after this, I'm going to throw Gabe's information in the description. So if you want to look for Gabe's channel, Culture Brat, we're just going to have IRL. You'll see that in the description. Take care, guys. Peace.
All right, thanks. Later.
You are coping the ceiling. You just can't believe what you're seeing. Yes, you're coping the ceiling. The truth it is all day, and now you are molding. You're coping so hard. Coping, you're sleeping.